Hi friends, how is everybody today? I'm here on a very sunny, beautiful day. This is a Memorial Day weekend and I'm here at the Desert Memorial Park Cemetery, as you can see. Turn around so you can see. This is actually the front. Most of the time you enter through the side gate on Duval, which is this street right here. And then if you look down this way here, this is Ramon Road. And if you follow Ramon Road all the way to the end, you'll end up in downtown Palm Springs. It's around 5-10 minutes from the cemetery. So today I thought I would share a very personal story about my grandparents. My grandfather was a military man, and since this is Memorial Day weekend, I thought it would be appropriate to share it now. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to show you their grave sites. I'm also going to show you the grave sites of quite a few famous people that are buried here. I'm going to try to find a little bit shadier spot here to tell you the story. Back in the 1960s, when I was 10 years old, my grandmother took me and my brothers to Hawaii, to Honolulu, Hawaii. And that was my first trip in a plane. It's my first plane ride. That's the cemetery. This is the entrance to the cemetery behind me here. And she took us to the Punchbowl, which is an extinct volcano on Honolulu, the island of Honolulu. And it's a cemetery. It's called the, I believe it's the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. And it's a military cemetery, so you have to be part of the armed forces to be buried there. Or I think if you're a family member, certain family members can also be buried there. And so that was my very first trip to a cemetery. It's a tourist attraction as well as a cemetery. It was a really fun vacation, but really the real thing I remember about the trip was the cemetery. She also took us to the USS Arizona Memorial at Pearl Harbor, which is also the final resting places of hundreds of military personnel who were killed during the attack on Pearl Harbor. So that was my first visit to a cemetery. That was around 50 years ago, and I've been visiting cemeteries ever since. Now, I don't think we even took any photos, certainly didn't take any videos. We didn't have a video camera. And I really, even though I've been visiting cemeteries all over the world my entire life, I never really thought to take pictures. Well, every now and then I would take a picture or two, but I didn't have a video camera. And this was mostly before cell phones, where you had a video camera on your cell phone. So unfortunately, I don't have video of almost any of the cemeteries that I've visited around the world, which looking back now, you know, is such a shame. That trip is where I started my love of visiting cemeteries, all those years ago. And I owe that all to my grandmother. So while my grandmother was the one who introduced me to cemeteries, my grandfather was a real inspiration in different ways. He was a military man. I believe he was 18 when he first enlisted in the service. His father had also been a military man. He would, at the age of 18, it would have been right in the very middle, I believe, of World War I. So he started his military career during World War I, probably 1915 or 16, I believe. And then he spent his entire career as a military officer until he retired. His son, my Uncle Ted, was in the Navy in the 1950s, and my brother Bill was in the Navy in the 1980s. They both died in the last few years, and both of them were cremated and not interred in cemeteries. So here's my grandmother's gravesite. And I was also just realizing that she died 40 years ago in May. So she died, in fact, she died a few days ago, and 40 years ago in May. This is my grandfather. You can see he was born in 1898, so he would have been around 16 or 18 during World War I, which I believe started in 1914 and lasted until 1918. And so if he joined at 17 or 18, it would have been right in the middle of World War I. Now those red flowers right there, that's Frank Sinatra's grave. And so I also have another interesting story about that. Well, first let me pan around and let me show you where this is located, where they're located. This is the entrance where I was just a minute ago. You see Forest Lawn is across the street. Forest Lawn Mortuary. Forest Lawn Mortuary. So the interesting story here about my grandparents and Frank Sinatra, not only are they just buried a number of rows away from Frank Sinatra, but their best friends were Hugh and Maureen Young. Well, Hugh and Maureen purchased Frank Sinatra's home from him when he sold it to move to Rancho Mirage back in the I believe it was late 1950s. And they lived there for 40 years until they died in the 1990s. So they are the only other people who have lived in Frank Sinatra's first Palm Springs home. Because after they died, it was purchased by a company that now uses it as a rental. So it's a vacation rental. And so no one else has ever lived in that house except Frank Sinatra and my grandparents' good friends, Hugh and Maureen Young. Since then, it's only been used as a rental, a vacation rental, a very high-end vacation rental. We have a lot of celebrity homes here in Palm Springs, and many of them are used as celebrity rentals. So now this is the first time I've been back since Barbara Sinatra died, and well, I was here right after she died, before she had her gravestone, but now she has her headstone as well. Now straight ahead there, toward the niches, those are the niches that where I'm going to be, where my final resting place will be someday. Hopefully not anytime soon. But right in front, just a few rows this way from the niches, is the gravesite of William Powell. And then I'm going to walk over here. There's actually quite a few other people here in this section, famous people. And so just a short distance from Frank Sinatra's grave is Mary Mead Maddock, famous photographer. And not far from her grave, let's see, I believe it's up here. It's been a while since I've been here. Okay, so William Powell's grave. And back here, let's see if I can find it. Again, it's been a while since I've searched for all the graves here. Okay, Frederick Lowe. Frederick Lowe and Alan J. Lerner created some of the most successful and most popular Broadway musicals of all time. And they were later turned into movies which became classics. And there's another famous composer just a few rows away, James Van Heusen, along with Sammy Cahn, created some of the biggest hits of all time. And many of them were written for Frank Sinatra. It looks like they've cleaned up the grave since the last time I was here, which is nice. You can actually read it a little bit better. Some of these, as I mentioned, are a little difficult to read. So you may remember that really great song, if you're my age, or older actually, Swinging on a Star. He had some huge, huge hits, and wrote many of the songs for Frank Sinatra. They worked together for a number of years, and here they are, 1, 2, 3 graves apart from each other. So obviously they were friends. And look at that. The title of one of his most popular songs is one of the best epitaphs in the cemetery. And this is a cemetery full of very creative epitaphs. I believe it was the next row over is Macdonald, who was the co-founder of McDonald's. Okay, so here's Jolie Gabor, Ava and Jaja's mother, Magda Gabor's mother. And then I believe it's either in that row or maybe this row is Macdonald. As you can see, over the years his headstone has really faded. It's really sad that one of the founders of the world's most recognizable companies has a gravestone that's almost unrecognizable. The calcium and minerals in our water here really do a number on these gravestones. And of course, Frank's good friend, Julie Rizzo. And then there's Andrea Leeds. She's just one row over from Frank Sinatra's grave. And these are just some of the graves in this one small section where my grandparents are buried. There are dozens of other famous people buried throughout this cemetery, and I'll visit them in future videos. Like many other cemeteries, Desert Memorial Park occasionally offers special events. Here's a few moments from a Memorial Day celebration I attended a couple of years ago here. The free concert was given by the Palm Springs High School Band. So, do you remember the first cemetery that you ever visited? If so, please leave a comment down below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to be notified when I upload future videos like this one. So as always, thanks for joining me today, and I'll hope to see you next time.